Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be milling up some cottonwood I took out that was at the edge of the woods when I was putting up the garden fence out here. So hopefully we can get a little bit of usable lumber out of that. I already cut out these into sections that we can mill with the chainsaw. So it looks like it's good wood on the inside, even though it sat here for a couple of years. But take a look at these pieces I've got. So this is the base here where we cut it, and you can see the really weird growth pattern here. Big bulge to it. Nothing I can actually load on the mill just because I don't have a fork truck to put that on there. Might see if my buddy can come over with his in the future. Might see if we can get some interesting side cuts out of this, little slabs. But we went ahead and cut it. Got it over here on the other side of the mill, and I think we're gonna get some good pieces out of this because these are all pretty straight, pretty nice pieces. Especially these three larger ones over here. The longest one back here I cut 9.5 feet. That's about all I go for these days. I don't try and get the full 10 foot out of the mill just because it's easier to maneuver things around and get it where I want it when you have that little extra play. This bottom one here is a bit crooked, so we'll see how that turns out. We'll have it on its side. Might take advantage of that depending on how we use it. But like I said, it looks like they're good pieces. And we'll see what we get.
That's all right. Got it after you get it.
There we go. I don't think this was all for nothing. We got some good looking wood here. Pretty grains. Not a lot of color to cottonwood, at least on this one, but it could be because it sat a while. I'll be able to make something out of this, I think, after all. You can see how some of that has gotten a bit water damaged, especially here at the ends where it had been cut a couple years ago, and it's kind of working its way in there and adding a little bit of color to it. Definitely got some interesting colors, some reds, those kind of black streaks in there, especially down here at this end. A lot of these black streaks, so I'm actually kind of excited to see what I can get out of this. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on its side and make a few more cuts, see what else is under here. So we got about 2x6s out of this, and another piece that we'll cut into some shorter ones. The color is definitely there. I don't know how strong these are really going to be, but might be just as good as pine once they're dry. But I do like kind of the character it's got with those dark colors and mixed with those light colors. Looks pretty nice, but once we get it dried and planed, we'll see how that goes. Plan to take this in, cut the ends off of these, and coat it with some of that anchor seal, and then we'll get it all tightened up and set to dry. Go ahead and cut those other ones. I anticipate they'll be fairly similar to this, but you know, we'll see when we get them open. So if you've seen some of my other videos using this mill or seen someone else use it, you'll probably notice that I've got this thing parked backwards. So that with the orientation of the bunks, I can't have the winch on the side that gives me the whole width of the mill in order to load up this log. But I've lucked out here because this log isn't very large, and the top of the ramps is horizontal at the very end, just wide enough for me to be able to pull this log up the wrong side and then remove the winch and then pull it over the rest of the way. So even though I was in a predicament here where I couldn't pull the mill up here like I wanted it to be, I was still able to get this done because of the size of the log. The lowest here I've got like 6.5. That's 6.5. Got plans to one of these days make another shed, so I've gone ahead and cut these into 2x4s. We'll see if they're long enough to be studs later, but they look pretty good so far. At least one of them is going to be perfectly fine as a 2x4, long enough and all that. The other, we'll see how much we have to cut off here and just how thick it is once it's planed to the right thickness, but they look pretty good. Definitely be usable for framing of some sort, so we can get these stacked up and hopefully they'll dry straight enough we can use them that way. All right, so probably the most worthwhile cuts we made. Got 3 of these that are just a little bit oversized 2x6s, so we'll be able to plane those down later and use them. And actually it looks pretty nice in here. The other pieces were kind of bland, very white pieces that weren't as interesting, but got at least a little bit more color in here, a little bit more in the reds, and kind of a yellowish tint to a lot of this. So a lot more interesting to look at for sure, but we'll find a use for it, I'm sure. I'll put that other little piece here back in, probably turn it into 2x4 that'll be pretty rough on the sides here with that live edge there, but might be able to use that for something outdoors. And the final kind of count of everything is over here. So haven't figured out what all of it is yet, but got several 2x4s. We'll recut the ends on, get the anchor seal put on there. Got some slabs I'll do the same thing with. And some of this stuff is a bit rougher on the ends, but we'll shave them up a little bit and see what we can get out of this. But might be good for some construction projects here in the future. I got all these boards cut now. I ended up with 8 2x4s and 5 2x6s, along with the 2 kind of small slabs here, and then 3 larger ones on the bottom. This one was already splitting just the day after being milled, so we'll see how that turns out if we want to throw some epoxy in there. Not sure quite what we'll do with these yet, but got all this cut up and to about some acceptable spots. I mean, some of this might be shaved off the end here later, but at least some of these I think are going to be pretty nice and pretty useful. A couple that are, you know, just real small pieces here. Might even just turn these into stickers for stacking other lumber once it's dry enough. But pretty excited to see what we get out of these in the future, see what they dry into. Yeah, gonna get these stacked up and put away.